But failure isn't fearful for me because I feel that in those situations, I always stop to think, what did I do that was not me? If I did everything in that situation that was 100% Wendy, then I'm okay with it because I'd rather fail and be myself than fail and try to make somebody else happy.
Welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast, a podcast about women who work in sports. I'm your host, Jahaan Blake. After 15 years of working for 3 major league teams, including the Boston Red Sox, Los Angeles Dodgers, and the Chicago Cubs, I discovered the one thing I loved the most was helping women in sports shatter glass ceilings and take their seat at the table. I loved it so much that I made a business out of it. I have the honor of coaching high-performing women in the sports and entertainment industry and supporting them as they go after exactly what they want in their career. So if you are feeling tired of waiting on the sidelines, done being overlooked for promotions, and you're ready to pull ahead of the pack and take your career to the next level, girl, I'm here for it. I also created the Game of Her Own podcast to support you as well. We are here to share the stories of incredible women who work in sports and entertainment. These leaders and trailblazers will inspire you with their success and the lessons they've learned along the way to the top. Ladies, there is nothing like women empowering women. I am so honored you're here. I am so excited for you to meet my next guest. But before we jump in, I do have a question for you. Have you ever read a job description and thought, I can't do that job, not qualified, and then you just delete it? My next guest did exactly that. And get this, it was a job working for the Olympics. I can't wait for you to hear what happens after she deleted it. Spoiler alert, she goes on to work for the Olympics and she tells us everything that happens between deleting that post and getting the job. Friends, I am talking about the brilliant Dr. Wendy Borlabi, who is the Director of Mental Health and Performance for the Chicago Bulls. I know that you're going to love hearing about her journey. And since she's in sports psychology, I couldn't help but ask her to share her advice around some mindset issues that we all have. You do not want to miss her advice. All right, friends, let's do this. Dr. B, welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast. I am so honored and happy that you're here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I love being able to support and empower women. So this is awesome.
Ooh, good. This is going to be a fun conversation. So take us back in time and tell us when you first fell in love with sports.
It's such a hard thing to think about, or should I say pinpoint it. But I do know that, coming to the United States, my dad was wanting to learn about American football. And so he was watching, it was in the late 70s. So they saw the Steelers and the Cowboys. So he was watching American football, trying to learn about it. And so I remember just watching it with him, his love of football just kind of growing. And so that was something that we did together as a family on Sundays. And so it's all connected to the whole family time because my parents, came to the United States and they were working and going to school. But on Sundays, we'd watch football and watch Westerns, which is kind of random, but that was like our family time was around sports. So I think that's what the love came from there.
You said your parents came to the United States. Where did they come from?
So I'm from Ghana. So we're originally from Ghana, and my dad came 6 months after I was born, and then my mom came like a year and a half after I was born.
Oh, wow. Ooh, we could do a whole podcast episode on that. All right. So you got to spend a lot of time with the family watching sports. That's when you started to fall in love with the game. Tell us, when did you realize you wanted to work in sports?
I actually always thought that I was going to just be an athlete, just play. I mean, that was my dream. That's what I thought I was going to be doing. There was no deviation. It was, I was going to play in WNBA and that was it. And so when I hurt my ankle and that was then in my basketball career, my degree was in psychology, but I just didn't know what I was going to do. So I was just kind of working different things. I mean, I worked with like at a runaway shelter. I worked with adolescent male sex offenders. I worked with adult male sex offenders. And then along the line, someone came to me, one of my coworkers, and said she was going to a sports psych conference in New Orleans and wanted to know if I was going with her and our job was going to pay for it. And so like a responsible person, I went because it was a free weekend in New Orleans. It was a fabulous weekend in New Orleans. I don't think I attended a single sports psych thing. But about a year or so later, I started thinking, wait, what is this sports psych thing? And is this a job? And can I really work in sports, which I love and get paid? And so then I really started looking into it then. But it was just, being at the right place and just kind of fell into it. But I never thought I could work in sports because I just thought I was just going to play sports.
Yeah, I had that dream of playing sports also, and it did not go anywhere. I thought I was going to be the next Mia Hamm, but I was not as good as I thought I was. But then I got to work in sports, so that's a silver lining. So, and I'm sure people are sick of hearing that story. So tell everybody what you do now and who you do it for.
So I am the director of performance and mental health for the Chicago Bulls. So essentially I am, the topic, or should I say the title people are more familiar with, like sports psychology. I've been with the Bulls for the last 4 seasons. Prior to that, I was with the Olympics for about, I think 6 years. I don't really remember, somewhere around there. So I've been in sports psychology since 2000.
Okay, so people are hearing you talk about working for the Bulls, working for the Olympics, like those are dream jobs for people. Like, they might already be in sports or they're trying to get into sports, but when you hear, especially Olympics, they're thinking, wow, that's incredible. It's so hard to get into. How did you even get into the Olympics? And then what were you doing for them?
So I was at James Madison University, which I actually loved that job at JMU. But Harrisonburg was a small town. I mean, it was a small town. So being an African-American woman, not in my 20s in Harrisonburg, had no social life. So all I did was work. And I was going to move. I was going to leave Harrisonburg because I just needed to be in a bigger city. And at the time, the Olympics had posted that they were hiring for someone. And I think like most women, I thought, oh, it's the Olympics. I wouldn't get that job. I'm not even going to apply for it. So I just bypassed it, deleted it, didn't even think anything of it. And a friend of mine was working for the Olympics and he called and said, did you see that we were hiring? And I said, yes. And he said, you should apply. And I was like, really? I should apply? And he said, yes. And I said, why? And he started to list all the things that I'd done at JMU and shocked me, because I was like, oh, wait, I had done all those things. I did do that. That's right. I did do that. So then that gave me the courage to go, wait, I have accomplished this already in my career, but I wasn't really thinking at a big scale. And so I applied. After his phone call, I applied. And as I say, got the job. Yeah, I went from there. So it was actually kind of interesting because I was literally going to leave James Madison. I had no job lined up. I was just going to move my sister lived in Chicago and I was like, I need a city. I was going to go to Chicago or go back to Atlanta. So I was just going to leave and, I figured out when I got there because I'm just kind of roll like that. And this was in the summer and I was going to leave in December and he called in somewhere maybe like in August. I know I interviewed in October. They offered me a job in November and that was it. I was moving to San Diego.
Wow, that's fun. We're moving to San Diego. Okay, so maybe it's just because it's cold right now. I was like, oh, that sounds so nice. Okay, so you saw this job posting and immediately thought, oh, I can't do that.
Absolutely, immediately. It's the Olympics. I mean, it's the Olympics. I was like, I can't do that. That's way, way above anything I could accomplish. So I just didn't think about it, just deleted.
That is so crazy that so many of us do that. Like my job for the Cubs, I did the same thing. Someone sent me an article. The Ricketts said, we want a chief hospitality officer. And so that title really wasn't like, no one had that title, right, in sports. And then I just thought, well, I'm not that level, so I can't do this job. And someone else did the same thing for me that they did for you. Is like, yes, you can. Like, yes. Here's all the reasons why. So it sounds like to me, is this someone who's in your network or a friend?
He is definitely my network. He's actually my twin's godfather. So that's him. Aww. Yes, he is actually, let's go even further back. His sports psychology, I'm just going to say, is a lily white field. And so he was one of, if not the first African-American that I met at a sports psych conference. And we immediately was like, oh, hi, how are you doing?
I know that feeling.
and like became like friends immediately. It was like, oh my gosh, wait, there's another person here? And we've just been friends ever since. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Oh, that's fantastic. So it sounds like to me, if you had to give advice to somebody, really, it'd be, I think we both say the same thing. If you see something and you're just like, it makes you nervous, you don't think you can do it, like just ask somebody who you trust, who understands the value that you bring to the table, who sees you differently than you see yourself, really. Would you agree?
I agree. Absolutely. And I would add to that to say that applying for a job that you think that you may not get doesn't cost you anything. It's a phrase I remember in my first psychology lesson, as they say in high school, my psychology professor, he was so weird, so weird. But one thing he said was that when he was in high school, that he would ask every girl or that he was interested in, he would ask them out on a date. And, prom queen, didn't really matter. He would ask whoever, if he was interested in the person, he would ask them out on a date. And his friends would always just, how did you even do that? Because he was so weird. And he said that he felt like this was asking someone for on a date or doing something that he didn't already have was a win-win. He couldn't lose because you can't lose something you didn't already have. So all you could do is win. He didn't have a date with her to begin with, so he didn't lose anything. All he could do was win if she said yes. So if you apply for the job, you don't lose anything because you didn't have it to begin with. All you could do was win. When that experience happened with me, with my friend, I started to think back to that conversation with my high school psychology professor and started thinking, that's the way I need to start looking at things. And that's the way I like to talk to players about, it's look at it. Most things are win-win. We just take on the loss when it's not really a loss.
Yes, that's incredible advice. So, okay, tell us a little bit more. So now you apply, you get the job that you didn't think you were qualified for. And then what happened? How was your experience working for the Olympics? I mean, you were there for 6 years. And I got to imagine and I'm just taking a guess here, but you didn't think you were qualified before you got the job. And then you got the job. Was there any self-doubt when you first started working?
Honestly, there wasn't self-doubt about me being able to work with players or do my job. Funny enough, the first time I felt uncomfortable, and it wasn't the first week, but it was walking around the Olympic Village and the campus. And I mean, these men and women are like in unbelievable shape.
I can only imagine, yeah.
So, you're walking around and I was like, oh, wait, I got to start working out. Wait a minute. I didn't think I was looking like that. But so that was the only time that I thought, I think I need to pick up my game for that. But, once I got there and just got comfortable seeing what my office was, and it was more of just, I know what I'm doing. I know how to talk to athletes. I know how to position myself. And so I just kind of just let it flow, just let it go, so take the expectations out and just let things happen. But the Olympics was a very challenging job for a couple of reasons. One, it's the Olympics, so it's very political. But two, I also had 14 or 16 different teams. The way that I worked, depending on the coach of that team and those players. And so it was different with every team. So it was always a challenge in remembering, okay, this coach likes this coach wants it this way. So that was one of the things that was a little different, or so say challenging working with the Olympics.
Yeah, I can only imagine how challenging it is. I've never worked in the Olympics, and it just seems so untouchable, right? What I hear from people trying to get in, right? No matter where their experiences lies, they might be entry level or they've been, they're an executive and it's hard to get your foot in the door. Would you have any advice? Do you have any advice for women who are looking to work in the Olympics on how to even approach it?
Sure. I would say actually and I would say this with any job in sports, and you probably have experienced this as well. It's the networking and the connections. It's the people that you know. And I don't mean to make connections or network to get a job. I mean to make real network and connections with people that you really want to talk to and interact with. And that becomes really genuine. And that goes a long way because in the field of sports, when jobs are up, there's a lot of times, especially professional sports and oftentimes the Olympics, they're not advertised. And so they've heard from somebody else. And so your name can get thrown into the shuffle because you have made really good relationship with people and have shown what you could do. And so I think that's a really good way is to make real network, real connections, not just don't go someplace and just hand out your business cards or collect business cards just to be doing that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that find someone that has an interest in what you're doing or what you have interest in what they're doing and make that connection and build from there. I would also say is to apply. I mean, if you see a job where someone told you something, is to put your name out there. It doesn't hurt. They will see your name and, it could come up at any point. So, I say go ahead and send your information in there.
Yeah. It goes back to what your professor said and asking out all the women he was interested in. You have nothing to lose by doing that. Talk a little bit more about the networking in the real relationships, right? It's something I talk about a lot with people. What I find are people are nervous, right? Either people are going out, talking to people, and if it doesn't work, oh well. Then some people are getting a little nervous. They don't know what to talk about, right? They're just what are we talking about on this call? I don't know what to do. So what would you say to anybody who's trying to go out there and make those real relationships? Even just one piece of advice to do that.
Be yourself. Be genuine. Mm-hmm. That's the piece of advice I would give you. Do not get on the phone call or see someone and be someone that you're not, because it's gonna come back to hurt you anyways. So be genuine, so that way the connection is a genuine connection. I start out if it's someone that I don't know, or if it's someone that I'm interested in even having a conversation with. I actually just start off with on a personal level. I try not to go straight to business because then I think things get really cloudy. And so it's hard to maintain or even have a really good interaction if you're both having an upper level conversation. So let's get real about who we are. And so, I start the conversation with whatever may be happening that morning or that day, because it's real life, this is what's happened. I've rushed from this and this because I'm doing this. And so then it starts the conversation. Oh yes, this happened with me. And then we start to just kind of vibe off of that. And then we go from there. And then usually it'll lead into the business conversation, but try not to just jump right into that, because then you're really not going to understand who they are and they're not going to understand who you are.
Yes, I love that advice. Now, okay, so you're at the Olympics 6 years, get the incredible job, and then you make the decision to leave the Olympics. How did that work, and where did you go next? Talk to us about that.
Sure. So I had twins. They were 14 months old, I think, at the time. Ooh. 14 months old. Yes, I was actually 5.5 months pregnant at London Olympics, Summer Games. That was an interesting month in London. But after the games, I had the twins in November and still worked for the Olympics for a year. But my job with the Olympics was travel. So a lot of my teams were not in the United States. So I was going to France for 3 weeks, Italy for 3 weeks. I'd be home for a week, go to London for 3 weeks, be home for a week, go to, and granted, I went to some like Mallorca. I went to some beautiful places, Canary Islands. I was all over the world, but you can't really do that with newborns. So
I'm just like thinking about, I'm like, oh my, I don't have children, but just thinking about my sister, and she was pregnant. She was like, we are going to South Africa while I'm on maternity leave. That was her plan. And like a couple of days before the baby was born, she was in the kitchen. I'll never forget it. And she was kind of like leaning over, and her husband came over and she was like, yeah, we can't go anywhere. I don't know what I was thinking, because she loves to travel. She's been all over the world, but she was just like, it changes everything. And she did not know it up until the days before. So I can only imagine all the traveling you're doing with 14-month-olds all over the world.
Yeah, before they were 2, they had been on 16 flights. 2 of them were international before they were 2 years old. So yeah, they were some travelers.
Oh, I love that.
So we picked up and went. And the time I also started a company with 6 Navy SEALs when I was with the Olympics. And so we did performance for businesses and for professional teams. And so when I quit, I decided to quit the Olympics and stay home with the twins and in January. And so again, they're like 14 months old. So I quit and wanted to stay home with them. And so I still was working the APG, was the company I started with the Navy SEALs. I was still doing that. And then I got into doing some consulting with the NBA, just doing that sporadically. But for the most part, I was literally home. I called it, I was playing Syracuse zone defense, the real zone defense. It was 2 against 1, and I was, it was real. So, but I stayed home with them for about 1.5 years. And again, I would kind of do a little bit here and there. But then when I took them to a swimming lesson, and my friend that was going with me, he was sick, so he couldn't go. And so when they're at that age, someone needs to be in the water with them. And so I couldn't do the swimming lesson. And that was a moment that hit me that I thought, I need to really think about being in San Diego by myself with no family and no support. I need to figure this out. I did have my cousin that lived with me, which I actually adopted my cousin and brought him to the United States when he was 17 so he could get his education. And so we were going through the process. We hadn't legally, that's not true. At that point, I'd legally adopted him and he started school. But I thought, I need more support than this. And so I thought, I want to move to Chicago. My sister's there. She's got kids that are around the same age. Her youngest is 9 months older than the twins. And so it was the summer of 2015. And I thought, I'm going to spend another winter in sunny California. And then in the spring of 2016, I'll move to Chicago. So that was my plan. So I was just moving along with that. And then I got a phone call from Ken Ravizza, which Ken Ravizza used to be the sports psychologist for the Cubs. He passed away last year. And Ken Ravizza called me and said, just a heads up, the Chicago Bulls are looking to hire somebody. I gave them your name and your information, so you may get a phone call. So I said, okay, but went on with life. And sure enough, I got a phone call in November of 2015 from the Bulls and wanting to have a conversation. So we talked for a little bit. We talked again Christmas Eve, had another conversation. I was going to Toronto for All-Star through the NBA. So I was in Toronto and got a phone call from the owner and said, would you happen to be in Toronto? And I said, actually, I am. He said, well, we'd like to meet with you. And so I went to their hotel and we had a meeting in the lobby, and they offered me the position in February 2016. And so, yeah, it was actually kind of serendipitous because, again, I said, I'm actually moving to Chicago, and I was planning to move in April. And so they said, oh, well, let's not change your plans. If you want to, you don't have to come in February if you want to wait and come when you were planning. And I was like, yes, would prefer to just wait and come in April. And so we decided on that. And the rest is history, as they say.
Wow. Talk about putting things out into the universe and just manifesting what you want. Like, all right, I'm moving to Chicago, not looking for, not that you didn't want a job, but like that wasn't your goal. Your goal was to Chicago, be around family, do what was best for your family at the time. And then this job happens. Wow, that's incredible. I totally believe God says I need to be here in Chicago. There was no other way. He just kind of moved things around. He was like, just in case you missed it, let me give you this loud and clear. Hey, Jahaan here. I hope you're enjoying the interview. I'm sure you are thinking about your own career right now and how you can pull out in front of the pack to take your career to the next level. For 18 years, supporting women in sports has been my favorite part of my career, and I would love to support you. Whether it's joining my free Game of Her Own community or one of my one-on-one coaching programs, I am here for you. Send me a message at jblake@jahaanblake.com or DM me on Instagram @jahaanblake, and let's schedule a time to have a free session. I cannot wait to hear from you. All right, let's get back to why you're here. Okay, so tell us, was this your role? Was it brand new with the Bulls?
Yes. So I know that they had somebody back in the 90s, but I don't think that, well, let me tell you, I know the person was not with the Bulls. It was someone that they had their own practice and kind of was just around. But this is the first time the Bulls actually looked to find somebody that was going to help people perform better. So this was the first time, the first role position that they had for sure.
Did you feel like you had to work harder to show your value, or was everyone in the organization already on board with the work that you were going to be doing?
Let's see. I think a little bit of both. I know the big thing that I knew going in was that I had the support of the owners because they're the ones offering me the job. So I knew it was coming from them, that this is something that they want. So I had the support of them. And so that was great. But with a position like this, going into a new position or even going to any position and what it is that we do, the way that I believe it works the best is that things need to happen organically. So I didn't feel any pressure to do anything miraculously because I said that at the beginning. The only way this is going to work is if the relationships happen organically. This is a push, you got to meet with me, this is what's going to happen, it's not going to work. So I need to just be around as often as I can and let them be comfortable with me. And then things happen just from conversation. And so I put that in motion at the beginning to say, this is how it's going to work the best, is that if we let it happen the way it's going to happen. No pressure. So I had the support of the ownership, and then I came in with, this is my philosophy and this is how it's going to work. And so everybody was on board with, okay, let's just let it play out and see where it goes.
I love that approach. I love that strategy, especially when you're first starting at a high level in a really important, critical role. That's what I think, outside looking in. Okay, so you have done so much. Olympics, you had your collegiate experience, professional experience, then you're with the Bulls. I'm sure there's things in between them, forgetting. You're starting your company with the Navy SEALs. So you also have another company, correct?
Correct. I have I guess if you want to say maybe two, because I have my consulting business that I do, Borlabi Consulting, and that is primarily to give aspiring sports psychologists experiences because there's not a lot of sports psych internships around. And so I wanted to be able to have a place where I can teach folks how to, and I'm gonna be real honest, specifically women, because sports psych is not a field where you see women doing, big things. So I wanted to teach women how to become sports psychologists. And so the Borlabi Consulting is mostly for that. I do speaking engagement through that, but it's mostly for helping interns learn. And then I have a nonprofit called Wisdom Knot. And Wisdom Knot is about educating inner city youth about careers in sports besides being an athlete. If you remember me talking about when I was no longer could play basketball, I didn't know what I was going to do. Because I only thought I could be an athlete or a coach. There was only two options I thought. I didn't want to coach, but because someone presented this to me years later about sports psychology, and I've got this amazing career. And so I thought, if I grew up in upper middle class America and had no idea that I could have a career in sports besides being an athlete or a coach. I know inner city youth that are aspiring to be the next LeBron James or anybody, you know, I'm just saying Ben Roethlisberger just because I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, but just aspiring to be the next NFL player, NBA player. They don't have the information that they could do any of these other jobs. I mean, there's over 100 jobs you can do in sports. And so the nonprofit is not about taking away their dream. So they can have the dream of being in the NFL, the NBA. I just want to give them plan B, D, C, and F in case that doesn't work.
Yes. You know, I think that's so smart because I hear so many people who are like, I didn't even know sports wasn't, like working in sports was an option. Just had no idea. And then had no idea how to go about it. Like things that we all take for granted, teamwork's online, right? Like just, you know, how to find a job. And I was so surprised to hear like some college students don't even know what that is. Like, don't even understand what an internship is in sports and like what you do and how you go about it. And so, yeah, that's such a needed area. That's incredible. And so I feel like it would be a miss if I didn't ask you, I mean, you are the director of performance and mental health. So if I didn't ask you some questions to help us all with our performance and mental health, I feel like it would be a miss. So if you had all of the women who are listening in a room with you right now, and a lot of us were talking about, let's say, self-doubt comes up all the time. For some people, it's debilitating and it pops up all the time. And what I try to tell people is it's normal, but sometimes it's nice to hear from other people. So what would you say to us? Like, what would you teach us?
Oh yes. Self-doubt is so normal. Oh my goodness. It's so normal. So I'm glad that you say that to normalize it for them, that they're not the only ones. I would say, I think of two things. The first one is I like to think of self-efficacy instead of self-confidence. Self-confidence is the global, the huge entity. Self-efficacy is your belief in your ability to accomplish a single task. So I'll say that again. It is your belief in your ability to accomplish a single task. So you may have high self-efficacy in your ability to write a paper, but low self-efficacy in your ability to stand up and do a presentation, right? So it's specific to a task. And so I like to think about, when you start to think about self-doubt or things that you think that you cannot do, I want you to break it down into things that you can do. Don't think of the whole global, I'm not confident in speaking in front of a crowd. Are you confident in putting or developing what you're going to speak about? Maybe that's where your high self-efficacy in developing your presentation. Are your high self-efficacy in your ability to dress for the presentation? That's a positive because, you know, right? That's a positive as well. Your high self-efficacy in that. You could have maybe low self-efficacy in your ability to stand in front of people and not get nervous. But you could have high self-efficacy in your ability to pronounce words, get your point across. So look at those pieces and figure out where you're high in, and that's what you pull from, as opposed to thinking, I can't do a presentation. But there's parts of the presentation you can do really well. And that's where you get your inner peace and your inner feelings of this is something I can accomplish because you're pulling those little pieces. So looking at self-efficacy as opposed to looking at self-confidence. The other thing I would say is that something I learned in my master's program from one of my professors is that if you're in a meeting, let's say you're meeting with, you know, I don't know, 5 people from your work, and someone asks you a question and you're the one that's representing, I don't know, marketing, and someone asks you a marketing question. You are the expert in that room about marketing. So think about it that way. They're not the expert. You are the expert about marketing or whatever the subject is. Because they're asking you that question. So you're the expert. And so when you're giving the response, it does not have to be the A+ response. It doesn't have to be the best one. It doesn't have to be, you know, this profound thing. What it needs to be is what you think about the situation at that time. And that's how you express it. It could even be that you think, you know what, maybe can you give me a little bit of time to kind of think about that? I want to mull this over a little bit and come back and give you an answer. There's nothing wrong with that as well. You want to make sure you give the right response. But go in thinking you're an expert and sitting there thinking, if they ask you a question, you're an expert about whatever they're asking you, you're an expert. So you give them that response. And again, it doesn't need to be the best response. It's your response. And so when you're talking, that's the way you convey it. This is what you think. This is your experiences. And this is how you put these things together. And that's how you lay it out for them, as opposed to this is some profound thing that you're going to shock the world with. Which is what we get caught up in, right? Because you're wanting to make this big statement, this big heavy thing. Don't worry about that. Give them what you think and what you feel, because that's what they're looking for, because you're the expert in that.
Yes. It's like you read my mind. I was like, oh yeah, I used to get caught up in thinking that my response, the deck that I was putting together had to be this like profound work. And people were gonna, you know what I mean? Like read it and be so excited and applaud. And like, no, I made it so difficult. It was when I was tired and I had a deadline and I just said things as simple. Sometimes when I'm tired, I do my best work because I can't overthink it. It's just like, this is what I got. And then that ends up being the best work. Some of the things I came up with where people were like, this is amazing. I was like, it's just a scorecard. It's red, yellow, green, like just evaluating the work we're doing. I copied it off our CFO and people are like, this is incredible. I was like, okay, I don't know how that happened, but you're right. Like, you're the expert and it does not need to be profound. And when we try to make it so perfect, it never lands well. At least that was my experience.
Agreed. It's definitely my experience as well. So, and I agree that when you're keep it simple, it usually is, which is great.
Yes. And I love the exercise you talk about with the self-efficacy and self-confidence. That's one that like you could do every project you have.
Absolutely. Yes. You can do it every day. I mean, and don't think that I don't use it. I mean, because I do. I mean, I use it. I use it a lot. I mean, there's so many times I go into a situation being the only female and I get, I'm thinking, what am I going to say? Because it's the owner, it's the head coach, it's the medical doctor, it's all of these people. And I'm sitting there and I think, what am I going to add to this conversation? But then I stop and think, I always stop and have that conversation with myself, whether it's, getting dressed, on the drive up there, but I start to think, well, what is it that I do really well? I observe behavior. I change behavior. Those are things that I do really well. I am able to sit in a room and figure out who I need to have a conversation with about something that they may be some miscues or things that they're giving out that may be affecting the whole dialogue. That's something I do really well. So I start to break those down. Those are my self-efficacies.
Yes, I was talking about creating a playbook and just writing down your wins and writing down something you would want to improve. But this is even taking it a step further as well. Like, and if you start writing these down every day, when you flip back, that's where the magic is, right? Like you can look and be like, oh, I really am good. So if you don't have anyone you could call that could tell you all the great things that you're doing in that moment, like you can just look at what you have written down.
Yeah, I love that. Put it down. Absolutely. I love that. Put those self-efficacies down. Yes. Because those days you need it and you can't retrieve it. You don't have to think about it. Go to the book. It's right there.
Yes. Those days when you have the self-doubt and you can't think of anything that's you do well, right? It's incredible what self-doubt does to you in your mind. You're just like, how did I get here? What am I doing? I don't belong here. Like you just forget everything else is just, it's gone, but not if you have it written down. Okay, let's do one more because this is really fun and you're giving us such good stuff. So what about bouncing back from failure? Right now, people are getting fired and laid off and furloughed because of COVID. And then just sometimes it's not even because of COVID. Like it just didn't work out. Like it wasn't the right fit. What advice, if we were all in the same room, what advice would you give everybody?
I have maybe a unique way of looking at failure. I don't fear it. Failure is not something that scares me. Actually, probably more afraid of success than I am a failure because the expectations of when you were successful, right? But failure isn't fearful for me because I feel that in those situations, I always stop to think, what did I do that was not me? If I did everything in that situation that was 100% Wendy, then I'm okay with it because I'd rather fail and be myself than fail and try to make somebody else happy. Because then I got to, live up to that piece of, they didn't actually make a decision because of me. They made a decision because of X, Y, and Z, right? So if I gave them 100% me and it didn't work out, I think I'm okay with that. Again, with I want to give you me to make that decision. And I think about it in terms of when you're going to the doctor or finding a new doctor or finding a dentist or going to a grocery store, whatever the case may be, right? You go to Pete's and you're like, oh, I love this and this and this about Pete's, but I only like this. And then you go to Jewel. Oh, I love Jewel 100%. And you shop at Jewel. There's nothing wrong with Pete's. Pete gave you everything that it can do, right? It was all Pete's, but you just preferred Jewel. So there was nothing wrong with Pete. So that's the way I think about it. I'm giving 100% of me. There's nothing wrong with me. They just preferred this other person because it fit better with them. But that doesn't mean there's something wrong with me. So I didn't fail. If I fail, if I'm not 100% Wendy, But if I'm giving 100% me, that's not a reflection that I did something wrong or that I'm a bad person. It means that there was a better connection with someone else. And we all do that. Again, looking at your dentist or doctor. You go to the doctor and you're like, oh my gosh, I love this person. They're going to be my doctor. You go to this doctor and like, yeah, that wasn't a real fit, but it's a fit for somebody else. And the doctor's striving and that person's going to that. So there's nothing wrong with that. So it's about, again, my view of it is that I need to be me, genuinely me. And when I'm genuinely me and it doesn't fit, or if I mess it up, or if there's a mistake, whatever happens, I'm okay because I mess up, I make mistakes, but I was still given myself. And so I look to see those pieces and how to maybe shift that. But I always think it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. It's going to work out because I tried. So I went forward. I don't think I'm going 100% back unless I wasn't me, unless I decided to show up and be somebody else, which we've all done it. I've done it. So I would say for you to show up and be you, and don't doubt that you are not impressive or that you are not all that you can be. Know that somebody else may fit better, or some other presentation may fit better with somebody else, but doesn't mean your presentation wasn't great.
Yes. I said this before to you. I wish I knew you when I was working for teams. I'm not going to lie. What I'm hearing is some self-reflection when that moment of failure does happen. And then it's, okay, did I do something? Do I feel like I did something wrong? Like, was I 100% me? Or is there a mistake that I made along the way that I can identify? Right? And it's just taking the time to figure that out. And as I'm saying that, a lot of people, I hear this with job interviews, like as I'm talking out, I'm like having a moment here. Okay. So people are like, I interviewed and I did really well, but I want feedback from them just to know what went wrong. But sometimes it's, to your point, nothing went wrong. Someone else was just a better fit, and you just have to accept that and move on and keep going. You can't get hung up on why you weren't the right fit, because if you were 100% perfect, or you were 100% you, right? No one's perfect. If you were 100% you, that's all you can do.
It is. And if you let the why comes in, it just chips at you. And then you start, and I think that's where we start to change how we are in interviews or how we do presentations. Athletes do the same thing, right? How come I didn't get this hit? And then they start to change their swing. They change their stance. They change all these things about them, right? They start to chip away. He just threw a fastball, but I mean that's what happened. You know, it fit. It went right to the glove. There's nothing you could do. There was another person that fit better, but you stay true to who you are, and don't try not to. I can't say don't try not to let the self-doubt or the I can't do come and creep in. Just be who you are and carry that proudly.
Yes, this is incredible. So as we start to wrap up and we're all in this room together, is there anything else you would just say to women who are trying to, I know this is general, but trying to level up their career in sports? It's tough out there.
It is. And I think I would say back to being genuine, but further back than that is self-awareness. So I'm really big on knowing who you are, all aspects of you. So that exploration piece of learning that and going through that trial and trying to figure all those pieces out about you. I think having that self-awareness piece, I think helps you navigate not only in life, but also in your career, because then you know those things are that's gonna bug you, and you know how you're gonna react to it. So then you can counter that. You know, when someone does this or says this, or when you go into the meeting hungry or whatever the case may be, you know all those things about yourself that helps you navigate in those different ways. And so I think learning who you are, but actively learning who you are, I think can help you navigate in that process of trying to move into a different job or different career. I think especially in sports, because being a woman, you know, I think we get labeled or pegged with different things. And so if you know specifically who you are and how you react to different situations, and I think you can go in being able to dispel that.
And I love that. And how do you turn that into action or execution? How do you, I know it sounds so weird, but when I'm thinking of it, but how do you learn who you are? Like really on a deeper level, right?
Sure. I'm going to give you an analogy that is, I love my analogy. So I think that self-awareness is like body odor, right? So when you smell, when you stink, right? Somebody else starts to tell you. They will tell you smell. Or you were in that meeting and you made this face, or you said this, whatever, and this is the way that I took it. Someone tells you that when you start to stink. You may not listen to it, you may not pay attention to it, but someone's telling you when you start to stink, right? When you get funky, right? You smell yourself. Right? It's true, right?
100%. Yep.
So when you start to smell yourself and you start to go, okay, well, she said in that meeting, this is what happened. And then I see in this meeting, this is what happened. And I see in this meeting, this is what happened. You start to notice those things. That's when you start to smell yourself. And that's when you start to say, okay, I need to actually start to think about this and realize I can't go 3 days without a shower. That's when you start to make those changes, because now I can smell myself after 3 days. But you've got to pay attention, right? You don't want it to be always that somebody else is telling you that you stink. You want to always be checking in with yourself every day. Don't go 3 days. Every day you start to think, okay, in this meeting, this is what's happening. You're focusing, you're paying attention to what you're giving out and the cues that are happening. So then you start to learn what you're doing, because you're checking in every day with yourself. What we usually do, again, is we wait, and then somebody tells us, and then we get funky, and then we figure it out for ourselves. But by then we've gone past the point, right? Because you don't want to ever get funky. So you want to be able to shower every day. You want to check yourself every day. You want to figure those things out. And so thinking about, like, if you're looking to or just learn anything about yourself. So let me give you an example, maybe just something kind of general of, like, if you're learning to, or if you're just wanting to learn about yourself. So like for me, for instance, with the twins, I started to pay attention to when coming home and I'm exhausted because I'm giving, all of this stuff to people, and I come back and I still got to give to the twins. And so I was learning my mood would shift in the car on the way. And so then I'd have to build it back up to give to these two kids, because they want all this from me. And so, which they need all this from me. So I was learning, this is what's happening. And so then I needed to figure out, how do I shift that? Because I don't want it to be an every day I'm having to rise up to give it to them when I get home, right? And so, because that's exhausting in itself, because I'm using all this extra energy that I don't have. So by the time I put them to bed, I'm done, right? So I figured that this is what's happened. So I was paying attention, this is what's happening. So then I learned, actually, if I take this 30 minutes in my office before I actually get in the car, so that 30 minutes or that minute in the car, I'm shifting it from being in the car to being in my office. So now I got this 30 minutes to kind of decompress. When I get in the car, my mood is naturally shifting. So when I get home, I'm not having to build it all up and give it to them. But I needed to pay attention to, this is what's happening, because I'm paying attention, because I'm like, why am I so tired at 9 o'clock every night when I started going back to work? Why am I so tired at 9 o'clock? Because I was one that could, I didn't go to bed till like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. So I'm like, why am I so tired at 9? Oh, okay, this is why I'm so tired. And so I went backwards and started paying attention. And it took me several months to figure out how to make that better. But I was checking out every day. As I say, I was smelling myself every day to figure that piece out. And so I learned that about me.
I feel like if we were all in the room together, like, this is the point where we like all stand up and clap. Like, that was three really strong pieces of advice that people can put into action immediately just by listening to this. That was fantastic. Okay, are you ready to have a little fun with some rapid fire questions?
All right, let's do it.
Okay, what is your favorite sports moment?
Oh my goodness, my favorite moment of sports, I think it would be when I was in 8th grade watching the North Carolina basketball team play the national championship game, and Michael Jordan made that shot, that winning shot. That became my love for North Carolina and baby blue, because my junior high basketball team colors were baby blue. So I thought it was, that was the connection right there. So
yes, that's a good one. He definitely put that school on the map, at least for me. All right, what is something people always get wrong about you?
Always get wrong about me. They think that I like to be in control all the time.
Oh, interesting one. Okay. You know what's the problem with rapid fire questions is I want to ask more questions about the answer to the question. So I have a really hard time doing these. Okay. What is one food you wouldn't want to give up?
Oh, peanut butter. Girl, peanut butter all day, all day, all day, all day.
Interesting. Crunchy or smoothie?
Smoothie.
Yeah, me too. Are you a morning or night person?
Night.
Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
What job would you absolutely be horrible at doing?
What job would I be horrible at doing? Oh, a teacher. Yeah, if I had to teach kids how to, yes, academics.
Don't even get me started with teaching people math. Okay. What product would you seriously stockpile if you found out it was going out of business?
So funny answer, because I did this. Dove made a body butter, but you can only get it in Sweden. The body butter that Dove makes in the United States is not the same in Sweden as it is in Sweden. So it was going out of business. So I had my cousin and my friend send me all the body butter that they could find in Stockholm.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Do you still have it or have you run out?
I have one left and I'm just like, oh.
You need to write to Dove and ask them to bring it back. What's your favorite app?
I don't know if I have a favorite app. I don't think that there's anything that I like. I don't know. I could tell you one that I would love to have. There's probably one out there and I just don't know. Can I answer it that way?
Yeah, absolutely.
I would love to have an app that helps me keep track of what I need to do every day, but I don't need to put it in every day. I need to just put in, like, I need to talk to these 20 people in the course of a month, and it reminds me this day, this is what you need to do. Because there's like 30 something people I need to lay hands on every month, and I have a hard time keeping track of that. So that would be great.
Okay, if anyone knows of an app that fits those requirements, please let us know. All right, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram?
Instagram.
Who is your biggest inspiration in life?
I'm going to say my mom.
All right, we're down to the final two. As a child, what did you wish to become when you grew up?
A mother and a wife.
Oh, I love that. All right, finish this sentence. The future of women working in sports is?
So bright. So bright.
Yes, I agree. This has been an absolute pleasure. If someone wanted to get in touch with you, how could they go about doing that?
You could go to my website. It's wendyborlabi.com, Borlabi. That's how I spell my last name. So wendyborlabi.com, you can find me there. You can also find me at wisdomknot, knot.org, which is my nonprofit.
All right. Can people get involved in your nonprofit?
They can. And we're actually starting a new curriculum at the beginning of the year, but you can go to the website. It's got lots of information, and you can sign up for us to start to send you some information on what's going on. You can also follow us on Instagram. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Again, it's Wisdom Knot, KNOT. But you can follow us there and learn what we're doing.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We all appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us.
Thanks for having me. This is so much fun. I love to start a day off on a beautiful note, and this has been like the best. So I love it.
So what did you think of this episode? Do you know another woman who works or is aspiring to work in sports? Would you do me a favor and share this with them? It would mean so much if together we could support and inspire other women on their journey. And let's stay connected. I love meeting and talking to new people. Follow me on Instagram at Jahaan Blake and join the free Game of Her Own community by visiting jahaanblake.com. I can't wait to meet you.